Welcome back to the March 2015 edition of Environmental History Worth Reading. I'm Sean Courage, one of the editors here at niche-canada.org, and I'm joined by Jessica.
Yeah, I'm Jessica DeWitt. I am the niche social media editor.
So, Jessica, we've got another list of excellent articles and other media from the web that the environmental history community has been sharing online. And the first one that you posted is from last month's American Society for Environmental History annual meeting.
Hmm. Yeah, so as usual, the meeting sparked a lot of reflection pieces by people on their personal blogs. And my favorite afterwards and during the entire conference was by Sarah Wilson, who is a PhD candidate in American Studies at Penn State. Um, and she kind of describes the conference. It was her first time, and she describes it as a kind of renewal process.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Being in right after comp, she feels like she's in the midlife crisis of her PhD program, and the openness and the networking potential at the conference really sparked some newfound enthusiasm for what she does. And she also has four other posts. She did daily wrap-ups, kind of like what you did for Niche. And all of them are just really great. I really enjoy them. They're full of enthusiasm and curiosity, and I highly recommend people taking a look at them.
Yeah, it's an excellent series of daily recaps from the conference,
Mhm.
showing discussing the panels that Sarah saw and some of the
Mhm.
conversations that she had at the conference. And I
Yep.
think that's a great idea. And after I read this concluding post of hers, I realized that I had done the same thing as a graduate student. I had
Yeah.
finished comprehensive exams, and then I went to the ASEH for the very first time. And I think it was that same experience of feeling sort of rejuvenated and inspired to then carry
Mhm.
forward with my own dissertation research. Okay, Jessica,
Exactly.
so the second pick you've got here for this month comes from the Atlantic City Lab on the smells of 19th century New York.
Yes, this was the most viral post that we had this month. And it's a really great map of what were called the offensive trades in 19th century New York City. So these trades were offensive because of the odor that they emitted. And the thing about smells, historical smells, is that they're really hard to capture. They're intangible, they're ephemeral, and they also are subject to personal biases. What smells bad to one person may not smell bad to another.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really great about this map is that it shows how Brooklyn became the center for industrial activity because factories were relocated to make sure that the smells didn't affect richer neighborhoods. So,
And does the map, like I'm looking at the lines on the map, are these like smell zones, like emitting from particular
yeah,
areas in the
there's
range?
one, I can't see the map right now, but there's
Yeah.
one part of it that says that's where and then it has the way that the smells move.
It's such a great source
Yeah.
for sort of capturing sensory history, right?
Mhm.
The next pick comes from Avidly, LA Review of Books.
Yes. So I've been looking more and more at things about the Anthropocene for our roundtable that's coming up at CHA and ESAC. And in this, Dana Luciano reacts to the recent article in Nature, which pinpoints the start of the Anthropocene to 1610,
Mm-hmm.
based on, I think, colonialism and coal and global trade. That's really, I guess they argue that's when it really, the changes that humans made to the earth really start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the article, Luciano, she looks at some of the arguments behind when the Anthropocene starts, and her main point is that it is a political term,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's some time frames, such as the ones that go back 11,000 years, really take away from the politics of the term, which and take away from it being able to be used as a tool for highlighting the negative effects that humans have had on the earth. Um, so I thought it was a really interesting read, and she calls it the inhuman Anthropocene because really it's a small portion of humanity that has been inhumane towards the rest of the population of humanity. So,
Yeah, it summarizes a lot of the debates, especially at
mhm,
the ASCH on the panels about the Anthropocene, about how you define this epoch of overwhelming human influence and what the meaning of the term is. And you're right, there's debates about the technicality of the term Anthropocene and trying to pinpoint a start date. And this
yeah,
really emphasizes the political nature of the term.
hmm yes.
Then we switch over to looking at sea turtles in Baja California.
Yes, this is from Michelle Maria Early Capistran, and she is researching the changes in sea turtle. I think it's what's the Pacific green turtle, the
Right.
population through time in the Central Baja California Peninsula. And so she's looking at archival records such as the diaries of explorers, early explorers in the area. She's also been interviewing current fishermen to gain knowledge of the memories that they have of the populations of turtles and hunting them and whatnot. And then she's also looking at scientific literature to piece together um, how civilization in that region has affected the population of sea turtles. So in the early years, it was used as a staple for sailors and also a staple on missions because it's turtles can survive for a long time without water. So
Hmm.
they could take them to sea or they could take them to the desert and have fresh food. Um, and in the 20th century, she discusses how in the 1960s, the demand for sea turtle meat skyrocketed with the boom in population in the area, which led to a collapse in the population in the 1980s. And then eventually in 1990, became illegal to capture sea turtles. So it's just a really interesting article. She's on the New Scholars Committee, and her research is very interesting. So.
And I'll just say as an aside, this website is amazing. The design on it is incredible. I just scrolled through the whole thing and it has these pop ups of the
Mhm.
images and fantastic. I think everybody should take a look at this, not just because the content is great, but the design is
Yeah,
spectacular.
yeah.
All right, the last post for the top 5 picks for 2015, March 2015, about the politics of trees, the jacaranda, eucalyptus, and hyacinth in
Mhm.
Africa.
Yeah, so the author argues that most African city dwellers do not think of trees except in utilitarian terms for shade, property value, etc. But she argues that trees are political and demarcate ownership. And one of the strongest examples in the article is Johannesburg, where trees are not naturally supported by the ecology of the area.
Hmm.
So any trees that are there have been planted. And if you see an aerial view of Johannesburg, you can see that the poor areas and also the traditionally black areas are devoid of trees, and the richer white neighborhoods are fully treed. Um, and then she talks about also the jacaranda tree as a symbol of British presence in Kenya, and she talks about the hyacinth as a hated weed. It's just a really good article. It also made me think, it connected it to Saskatoon because trees aren't naturally here either. So any trees that are in Saskatoon, which is a very in the older sections, very heavily forested, they were put here for a reason, and they do markate
Yeah.
different regions of the town. So
It reminds me a bit of Joanna Dean's work on street
yeah,
trees in Ottawa, and
mhm,
you could see it across Canada, kind of introduced aesthetically pleasing trees that have some kind of connection to the British Empire.
mhm,
And the ones that really stand out in my mind are commemorative trees that were planted for various centennials or marking the visit of a British dignitary or something like that.
mhm.
And
Yep.
I know in my own work in Stanley Park there were a couple of trees that were planted in the park to either commemorate the visit of a British royal family member, or I think in one instance an American president had a tree planted in
Mhm.
his name in the park as well. So you see the kind of politics of plants. Well,
Yep.
another fantastic list this month. Readers can go to niche-canada.org to read more details and get the links for all of Jessica's picks for this month. And of course, they can stay tuned next month for another edition of Environmental History Worth Reading. Thanks, Jessica.
Mhm. Thank you, Sean.